He has a degree in music performance and sang opera professionally for 5 years before going into chiropractic school. He sung at the Carnegie Hall twice. Some of his favorite pastimes is CrossFit, runs marathons now. He enjoys spending time with his family and doing crazy stuff with his two boys, Matthew and Miles. So what motivates Dr. Greg is getting sick people well and motivating people to become a better version of themselves. His favorite motivational quote, "We never know how far-reaching something we may think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow," by B.J. Palmer. I present to you Dr. Gregory Jean-Pierre.
Hey, thank you, Alex. Okay, first and foremost, good infomercial. There was a lot of reaching going on. But the theme of today was vacation, so obviously I want to give it to you because, again, your life is a vacation, and even when you're at work, you're vacationing. So I want to give the best infomercial to Jane.
Thank you. I'll take runner-up thoughts. Do one more.
Okay, flights are really expensive.
Perfect.
Everyone in economy is going to need a chiropractor.
I think this works.
Now we got you the trophies.
There we go. All right. Okay, so let's talk about health. Again, a lot of you guys always talk about what's your biggest expense, your house and everything, but honestly, your health is your wealth. Because no matter what, if you don't have health, you can't enjoy anything else. So it's important that that's your top priority. Otherwise, everything falls. So let's get started here. I think this is forward. Nice. All right, before I start, everybody, what kind of chiropractic do I do? Does anybody know what NUCCA stands for?
Nerve.
Neurological,
Next
cervical.
upper
See, I had a gift for you guys, but I guess nobody's getting that one. Next one. It's an acronym for National Upper Cervical Chiropractic Association. It's a different form of chiropractic, which we'll talk about. It's one of the most specialized form of chiropractic that doesn't involve the popping, twisting, or cracking that you traditionally get with normal chiropractic. So we'll talk about that throughout this presentation. But first, let me introduce you to my family. That's my lovely wife, Taina. We just actually celebrated our 13th year anniversary in May. And my two crazy boys that we do a lot of crazy things with, Matthew, 11, Miles, 9. They're going to be turning 12 and 10. And that's our trip to France. And this is our girl. We always wanted a girl, but now we finally got one, Lucy. I mean, she really thinks she's a human. She's everywhere. And she's one of the most lovable dogs that you'll ever meet. My mother-in-law is scared of dogs, terrified of dogs. But she loves her. She comes to my house and cook for her, not for us. So it's like that's just her. She just brings everybody together. So that is Lucy. So before I begin, I want to show this video just to kind of open your mind about what's going on when it comes to the healthcare industry and how you are doing with your health. So let's watch this. That is the question. What is your pattern? Now, really important to know what your pattern is because, again, that's how we determine what health is. So, based on this quick question, what system controls every other system in the body? Who said that? I think I heard it from here.
Nervous.
Nervous system? Nervous system. That's it. Here's again for you.
Oh.
The nervous system. So the nervous system controls absolutely everything in your body. So as a chiropractor that practices NUCCA, when the nervous system is not working properly, what did they call it? Interference. All right. So an interference is what causes. There you go. It's what causes symptoms and disease. So instead of looking at pain symptoms and stuff like that, we want to make sure that your nervous system is working at 100%. Your nervous system is your brain and spinal cord. That's what controls every aspect of your body. Every cell, tissue, organ, muscles under the control nervous system. So when that system's working properly, that's the true definition of health. When that system is not, that's when the body starts breaking down, causing pain, symptoms, and disease. But just like you see there, the reason why America is dead last is because we focus on the symptoms. We only go to the doctor when there's pain, when there's disease, when there's symptoms. But by the time that happened, that interference must have been there for a long period of time. So rather focusing on the pain and symptoms, let's focus on making sure that the nervous system is working properly. And when it is, the body will naturally heal itself over time. I'm stuck here. The video got stuck. There you go. So with NUCCA, that's the point of the entire thing, is to balance out the nervous system by removing interference. So what I'm going to do is take you through a process in the office when you come in. How do we determine your pattern? How do we determine whether your nervous system is working properly, which would indicate whether you're healthy or not? So some of the conditions that we treat in the office are as follows. But again, it doesn't matter what's going on because these are typically secondary conditions. Okay. So when you come in the office, this is kind of giving you a tour of how you get in. I got a little happy with videos. But again, any symptoms that you have are a secondary condition of your nervous system not functioning properly. So rather than focus on these symptoms when you come in my office, I focus on looking to see how your nervous system is functioning. And that's how we're able to get rid of these things by focusing on the main problem, which is a nervous system interference. I gotta do the spine movie line. What happened here, Mike? There we go. So this is the evaluation process when you come in. Again, you come in through that door, you meet my secretary up front, and then we go through the process. So the first process is obviously we're going to do a detailed consultation, really to figure out what's going on, what's the source of the problem. A lot of the time, I get people that come in that says they have this pain, these symptoms. It started a week ago, started 2 months ago. But really, when we do all the examinations, the problem started 10, 15 years ago when you had a tiny little trauma that shifted that nervous system out of position and introduced the interference, which causes the problem in the long run. So again, we're going to do a consultation, we'll do all the examination, all the x-rays, and we have state-of-the-art equipment in the office to really determine how your nervous system is functioning. There are four different tests that we do as far as the nervous system. We do surface EMG, look at the muscles. We're going to do thermal scan, that's going to look at the nerve that goes inside. And then we're going to look at your range of motion to see if there's any flexibility issues. And then we're going to look at your heart because the heart is a secondary condition that controls everything else. So those four things are actually going to give me a score, which is what we call a pattern that tells me how well your nervous system is functioning. Now, I never touch anybody without being able to see what's going on. So the x-rays are important to determine the position of the bone to be able to realign everything to get you back into position. So after we do all this stuff, that's the only time you would get an adjustment. We never, just like we always say, we don't guess, we test. It's all about making sure that we see what's going on before we do the procedure. So instead of me talking about it, I'll let this Greg talks about it. Let's see. How did I do with the volume?
Put it on full screen.
Ah.
On X-ray. So every single person that come in and get evaluated, we take a series of X-rays to determine the position of the skull, the position of the atlas, and the position of the spine. So what you're looking at here is the atlas, the skull, and the spine. So when you come in, we're going to take a lateral X-ray from the side to be able to determine the level of arthritis, we're gonna take one from the front to see how your head is tilted as it sit on the outlet, and then we're gonna take one from the top to be able to see how the outlet is rotated. So based on this, we're gonna come up with a formula. So it's kind of a coordinate that tells us how to bring that atlas back into position. Okay. Now, not only that, once we bring it back, we're actually gonna repeat those x-rays immediately after to be able to determine how it's back in proper position. That way, that's gonna tell us whether we have the right adjustment factors or not. Okay, so that's what makes us different, the ability to be able to see the results on x-ray and be able to give you the best possible correction. All right, if you're interested, come on in and let's do the exam.
All right. So does anybody know what's the bone that adjusts in the office? The atlas. I heard it over here. Was that you? There you go. The atlas. So why is it that we adjust the atlas in the office and not everything else? And again, the way my education is that I learned how to do traditional chiropractic. So everybody that goes to chiropractic school, you know how to adjust the entire spine. So I can technically adjust every single bone, every single joint in the body. However, the reason why I focus on the atlas is because the nervous system actually starts at the brain. So the brain becomes the spinal cord, and that's what controls everything. The atlas is the 2-ounce bone that sits right under the skull. That part of the brain called the brainstem sits directly under there. So when the atlas is off, that typically put pressure on the brain itself, and that creates interference throughout the entire body. The atlas as well is so small that any force that enters the body typically going to find the path of least resistance, which is the smallest vertebra. So even if I were to punch in your low back, there's trauma, there's pain in the low back, but that has to travel somewhere. It usually travels here and knocks out of position. Then 5-10 years later, you have all these symptoms that we talked about. So that's why we focus on the atlas, is to be able to bring everything back in the proper position to allow the body to all of a sudden work again, removing interference to allow the body to heal itself. So just quick, how much do I have?
8 minutes.
8 minutes, okay. So just wanted to kind of share with you some of my clients and some testimonials. I'll go with her because she's by far one of the worst cases I've seen. And right now, she's thriving. Let's see if you can hear her story here.
A very bad neck injury. I started seeing Dr. John here after I had a very bad neck injury due to a car accident. I probably had the whiplash injury for going on 2 to 3 months before I was diagnosed here. And it was to the point where I couldn't work, I couldn't drive, I couldn't stand. The pressure in my head was so immense that I thought I had something very severely wrong with me. And when I came here, I really had no more hope left. So even though I've never had chiropractic work done and largely just didn't really fully believe in it, it seemed like nothing else would work, so maybe this would help. I came here, and within the first 2 sessions that I had here, I pretty much made like almost a 90% recovery. My quality of life went from being completely bedridden for 2 months to where I'm driving, walking, pretty much functioning like normal again, and it's all been stuff
That's an incredible story. And the other people, she's a bodybuilder. She's worked out all her life, but she was unable to work out anymore and she's actually won Miss Olympia twice. She was unable to work out anymore because of terrible hip pain. You guys know Andrea, and he suffers from migraine. So how am I able to actually take somebody that's been to a bunch of different doctors and was not being able to help? She had to quit her job. She literally, her mom brought her and she was in bed probably 23 out of 24 hours. How am I able to do that? Because it's just allowing her body to do what it was designed to do. Your body's a self-healing, self-regulating, self-adapting mechanism. If you cut yourself right now, you absolutely have nothing to do with it. It will heal on its own. Now, the reason for that is because the brain's able to communicate to that area and back without interference. So all I do in my office is remove interference. I don't fix anybody. I don't cure anybody. I don't do anything. All I do is remove interference to allow the body to do what it was designed to do. Interference usually happens because of trauma. So sometimes it can be repetitive trauma. You have on your computer all day long in this position. The things that you do throughout the day that can cause this kind of trauma, that's going to cause pain and symptoms in the long run. So my goal is just to remove that. Now, the next thing I want to give you guys is, I don't want to hear these. It's just going to go through all of them.
I started seeing Dr. John.
All right. So this is the thing, and I've always done this. When you come to my office to determine whether you have interference, this is all the examination that we do to kind of figure out what the interference is within the atlas and how we fix it. Now, typically to do this, it's a 2-day process. The first day we do all the examination to determine what's going on. I send all my extras to the radiologist to rule out if there's anything else going on. And then the next time you come back, we sit down and go over the results for about 20 minutes, really in detail, so you know exactly what's going on in your body. Typically, that's a $500 process. However, whenever I do this presentation for NPI, if any of you want to come in just to get the analysis, again, it's not an obligation. You don't have to become a patient just to know what's going on, that we can finally know what your pattern is. It's only $97. That includes everything. Afterwards, if there's something that we can do to help you, we'll tell you. If there isn't, then we'll point you in the right direction. But again, this is my way of kind of giving you the opportunity to see what's going on, because if you're going to go out there and kind of tell people what I do, you need to be able to know exactly and put yourself through it as well. So if you haven't been to my office and you want to come in, come on in. We'll do all the evaluation for you to determine what your interference are. All right? Any questions? Let's try.
Dr. Greg, the girl that you treated, like, is it that atlas like ever really, really off? Is that what you see? Because I know you say it could be a millimeter, or it could be really bad.
And with her, it was about, I think it was 2 degrees off balance. So I forgot to bring my spine, but the atlas, the way the brain's designed the skull, you have a hole called the foramen magnum. This is about the size of the hole where the brain actually exits to become the spinal cord. And the atlas is just the same. So when these holes are not properly aligned, you're literally squeezing your brain. Okay, and that's the area where all information has to be coordinated from the brain down and vice versa. So when that's misaligned even by a millimeter, that's put pressure on the brainstem, and it doesn't happen overnight. She's had that problem for a long time. When you take x-rays, you go to the doctors, they do all these tests, but they're looking for like cancer or fracture. They're looking for major things. This little misalignment doesn't mean much. But as we know, the brain controls everything. If we are able to clear that, the body heals itself. So that's kind of what we're looking for, just a tiny misalignment. But unfortunately, at the beginning, it doesn't hold, because you've been in that position for 10, 20 years. Just you here, over the next 3-4 days, it goes right back. So at the beginning, we tend to have to retrain your body to keep that in that position. And then, but as that happened, like you said, within 2 visits, you felt the difference. But as that happened, the body's able to heal itself over time. And like the fact that she was a lot younger allowed her to feel better a lot quicker.
When you say the abscess is out, that also means your neck is out, correct? Your neck is out. Normal, other chiropractors would say your neck is out, correct? Or
well, yes and no, because the atlas is the top vertebra. The position of the atlas determines the position of the rest of the spine. So what's happening is when your atlas is, let's say it's rotated this way, the rest of the spine is going to rotate that way. When the atlas is tilted, the rest of the spine tilts. So traditional chiropractic, they're looking at the rest of the spine being out of position. They put it back in position. But until you fix the major, everything else is going to keep going back. So what I tell people is I'm not adjusting the atlas. I'm actually using the atlas as a lever to adjust the entire spine. So that's why we have to actually spend an extra 2 years just to learn how to adjust this, even though I know how to adjust everything else. But this is the primary, because that's where the brain actually sits.
So is the atlas the brainstem?
That's the place where the brainstem actually become the spinal cord.
So it's below the brainstem.
No, the brain, it's a little bit right in the brainstem. So let's say this is the brainstem coming from the skull. The tip of it is right at the atlas here. In some cases, there are people that have it right in there. But if you put any pressure there, again, it's not the spine, it's the brain itself, the transition between brain and spinal cord. So that's why that's important.
When you break the brainstem, you die. Usually.
Exactly right. So if you have anything happen to the brainstem, you die. So if you have a little bit of pressure there, that's where you have the symptoms. Perfect example was Christopher Reeves. When he had his accident, he fell head first, and the only bone that he broke in the entire body was the atlas. That's it. He didn't have anything else. His legs there was nothing wrong with his legs. He couldn't move. But the problem is when you break that atlas, that bone actually went into the brainstem, and anything below the brainstem down didn't work. Everything else above worked. But that's how important it is. You and I, we don't have a fracture there, but we have a tiny misalignment that's putting pressure and it's expressing it in these symptoms. So again, I don't focus on the symptom. I focus on bringing that back. When that happened, the body heals itself.
You have 30 seconds.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, when you don't crack and adjust like you were saying per se, how is it you manipulate the atlas into position?
The X-rays tell me the formula, just like you saw in the video. When I take the X-rays, it's almost looking for a fingerprint. It tells me the position of the atlas. It tells me the position I need to stand to bring the atlas back into position. And there is very, like the pressure that I'm putting here, that's the amount of pressure you're gonna feel when I do the adjustment, just bringing the atlas back into proper position.
You do my friend Terry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Terry Brown. Yeah.
I had a question because almost everybody I know has some sort of lower back pain.
Yeah.
Is that the same positioning, or do you actually do the cracking?
All comes from up here. All comes from up here.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of referrals.
So when you do my friend Terry Brown, she says that you literally just touch. She
And
says,
she'll tell you
she's
the
like,
way.
and then she's like, "Oh my God, it's amazing."
That's it.
I can second that. I thought it was a joke the first time.
That's what she said.
I'm like,
That's what she said. She's like, I didn't even know he touched me.
thank you, Dr. Gray, for your presentation.
Great.
That being said, can you explain to us what a qualified business referral
A
is?
qualified business referral is somebody waiting to do business with you and expecting your call within 24 hours. Next step is to thank the person for calling.
Perfect. I'm not getting a review. I'm on point.